In the 1950s, America had 30 Howard Johnson's desserts that families could not celebrate special occasions without. Hot fudge sundaes, bisque tortoni, and strawberry shortcake appeared under every orange roof across the country. These legendary creations became the heart of every dining tradition. Then something changed. One by one, they disappeared from highway exits, family restaurants, and childhood memories. Today, most Americans have no idea these iconic desserts ever existed. These are the 30 forgotten Howard Johnson's desserts America left behind. Hot fudge sundae reigned as Howard Johnson's most ordered dessert from 1925 until the chain collapsed in the 1980s. Every location served them in tall silver parfait glasses that arrived at tables with hot fudge still bubbling and steam rising off the chocolate sauce that pooled around 3 massive scoops of vanilla ice cream. The secret lived in the fudge recipe that Howard Johnson himself created using real chocolate, heavy cream, butter, and a proprietary blend nobody ever successfully copied. The sauce stayed liquid when hot, but hardened into chewy ribbons when it touched cold ice cream, creating texture contrast customers craved. Each sundae, topped with real whipped cream and a bright red maraschino cherry, cost 65 cents in 1965. Children begged parents to stop at orange roofs just for this sundae. Adults ordered it after every dinner. The recipe died with the company, and nobody recreated it successfully despite decades of attempts. Bisque tortoni brought Italian sophistication to American highway dining when most restaurants served plain vanilla pudding for dessert. This frozen mousse combined crushed macaroons, heavy cream, eggs, and almond extract into something that tasted expensive despite costing only 35 cents in the 1960s. Howard Johnson's version arrived in small silver cups with crumbled macaroons sprinkled across the top and a single candied cherry placed in the center. The texture fell somewhere between ice cream and frozen mousse, melting slowly on the tongue while releasing almond flavors that seemed exotic to customers accustomed to chocolate and vanilla. Waitresses recommended it to customers who wanted something different from regular ice cream. The dessert required careful freezing at specific temperatures that modern freezers never quite replicated. When Howard Johnson's closed locations, the recipe vanished completely. Nobody makes authentic bisque tortoni anymore because the technique died with the restaurant chain that perfected it. Strawberry shortcake became legendary among Howard Johnson's regulars, who insisted no other restaurant made it correctly. The secret was using actual sponge cake instead of biscuits, creating layers that absorbed strawberry juice without becoming soggy or falling apart on the plate. Fresh strawberries macerated in sugar for hours released natural juices that soaked into golden sponge cake layers. A massive scoop of strawberry ice cream sat between the cake layers while whipped cream covered everything in sweet clouds. The combination arrived at tables looking like something from fancy bakeries rather than roadside restaurants. Families ordered it for birthday celebrations and special occasions. The dessert cost 75 cents in 1970 and required 20 minutes advance notice so kitchen staff could assemble it properly. When the chain declined, the specific sponge cake recipe disappeared. Modern versions use shortcake biscuits instead of the signature sponge cake that made Howard Johnson's version unforgettable.
Many of you have been asking where to find these recipes. We've gathered hundreds of them from the Depression era through the 1970s in our cookbook, Grandma's Kitchen. Complete instructions, pro tips in 10 chapters. Link is in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video.
Butter pecan ice cream ranked in the top 5 most popular flavors throughout Howard Johnson's entire 60-year run. The company used real butter to toast fresh pecans until golden brown and fragrant, then folded the warm nuts into vanilla ice cream base, while still hot, so the butter flavor infused throughout. Each scoop contained large pecan pieces rather than tiny fragments like competitors used. The ice cream had double the butterfat content of standard brands, creating creating richness that coated the tongue and lingered after every bite. A single scoop cost 25 cents in 1965 and satisfied adults who found plain vanilla too boring but chocolate too sweet. Regular customers requested it by name and could taste the difference when locations tried cutting costs by using cheaper pecans or less butter. The specific butter toasting technique required skill that new employees never quite mastered. When Howard Johnson's closed, the exact recipe proportions vanished with the company. Banana split required 3 scoops of different ice cream flavors arranged along a whole banana that got split lengthwise and placed in an elongated boat-shaped dish. Howard Johnson's version used vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry ice cream as the classic combination, though customers could request any 3 flavors from the 28 available options. Hot fudge sauce covered the chocolate scoop. Crushed pineapple topped the vanilla. Strawberry sauce smothered the strawberry ice cream. Real whipped cream rosettes piped between each scoop added decorative flair. Chopped nuts scattered across everything provided crunch. 3 maraschino cherries crowned the creation that cost 95 cents in 1970. Children considered it the ultimate special occasion dessert. The presentation impressed everyone when waitresses carried the massive boat dishes to tables. Families shared them because finishing alone proved nearly impossible. The specific boat dishes disappeared when the chain closed, and nobody manufactures replicas of those distinctive orange and white striped bowls anymore. Look 5 desserts down, 25 remain. Each one vanished when orange roofs stopped dotting American highways. The hot fudge sundae formula died with its creator. Bisque tortoni requires techniques nobody remembers. Strawberry shortcake used sponge cake recipes that disappeared. The next 5 desserts get even more forgotten. Frosted angel food cake arrived at tables looking deceptively simple, but tasted extraordinary, because Howard Johnson's used a proprietary frosting recipe that stayed fluffy and light, instead of becoming dense and heavy like regular buttercream. The cake itself rose impossibly high and white, made from egg whites whipped to stiff peaks with cream of tartar and cake flour. The frosting combined whipped cream with powdered sugar and vanilla in proportions that created spreadable clouds. Each slice cost 25 cents and appealed to customers watching their waistlines because angel food cake contained no butter or egg yolks. Birthday celebrations at Howard Johnson's often featured this cake with candles stuck into the thick frosting. The cake stayed moist for days without refrigeration, unlike modern versions that dry out overnight. When the chain disappeared, so did the specific frosting formula that made this simple cake special enough that customers requested it specifically instead of ordering fancier chocolate options. Apple pie at Howard Johnson's served 2 ways that customers debated endlessly: plain or a la mode, with vanilla ice cream melting into the warm filling. The crust used lard instead of butter or shortening, creating flakiness that shattered with every fork press and left golden crumbs scattered across plates. Fresh Granny Smith apples sliced thin, cooked down with cinnamon, sugar, and a secret spice blend that included nutmeg and allspice. The top crust, vented with decorative slits, released steam that carried apple cinnamon aromas across dining rooms. Each slice cost 25 cents plain or 40 cents a la mode in 1965. Truckers stopped specifically for this pie with coffee during late-night drives. The recipe came from Howard Johnson's mother, who baked pies in her home kitchen before the restaurants existed. When the company changed ownership multiple times, the exact spice proportions got lost in corporate transitions, and nobody recorded them. Raspberry ice cream stood apart from regular raspberry because it used actual black raspberries that grew wild in New England and provided deeper, more complex berry flavor with slight tartness that balanced the cream's richness. The dark purple color looked almost black in the scoop, creating visual drama that attracted customers browsing the ice cream display case. Seeds from real berries distributed throughout provided texture and proof of authentic fruit rather than artificial flavoring. A single scoop cost 25 cents and outsold strawberry ice cream 2-to-1 during summer months. Black raspberries cost more than regular raspberries and required harvesting during a short seasonal window. As Howard Johnson's declined financially, locations switched to cheaper regular raspberry with food coloring to fake the dark color. Longtime customers immediately noticed the difference and complained. The authentic version, using real black raspberries, disappeared completely by 1980, when cost-cutting became necessary for survival. Orange sherbet achieved immortality when the television show Mad Men featured it in a memorable scene where Don Draper's wife Megan tasted it at Howard Johnson's and pushed it away in disgust, perfectly capturing how the once-beloved dessert had become dated by the 1960s, despite remaining popular with older customers. The bright orange color came from real orange juice concentrate mixed with cream and sugar, then frozen to a texture smoother than ice cream but richer than Italian ice. It cost 20 cents per scoop in 1965 and appealed to customers who found ice cream too heavy after big meals. Children loved the electric orange color that stained their lips and tongues. Adults appreciated the refreshing citrus flavor that cleansed palates. The specific orange concentrate supplier went out of business in the 1970s, forcing Howard Johnson's to reformulate using different oranges that never quite matched the original flavor profile everyone remembered. Chocolate brownie came served warm from the oven, with a scoop of vanilla ice cream melting into the fudgy center, creating hot and cold contrast that made every bite interesting. The brownies baked in individual ramekins rather than large pans, ensuring crispy edges surrounded soft centers. The recipe used real butter, premium cocoa powder, and chopped walnuts stirred into batter that baked for exactly 12 minutes at high temperature. Each brownie cost 20 cents and took 20 minutes from order to table because they baked fresh per order rather than sitting under heat lamps. Waitresses warned customers about the wait time, but everyone agreed it was worth it. The brownies arrived so hot that ice cream melted immediately into pools of vanilla cream. The specific baking time and temperature created the perfect texture that home bakers never successfully replicated. When Howard Johnson switched to pre-made brownies in the 1970s, longtime customers stopped ordering them. Boston cream pie wasn't actually pie at all, but rather 2 layers of yellow sponge cake sandwiched with thick vanilla custard and topped with glossy chocolate ganache that hardened into a shell when chilled. Howard Johnson served it as their signature New England dessert, paying homage to the Parker House Hotel in Boston, where the original recipe was created in 1856. The sponge cake rose light and airy, baked in round pans that created perfect layers for splitting horizontally. The custard filling required constant stirring over low heat to prevent scrambling the eggs, creating silky smoothness that held its shape between cake layers without squeezing out the sides. The chocolate topping combined melted chocolate with heavy cream in precise ratios that created the right consistency for spreading while still warm. Each slice cost 30 cents in 1965 and arrived on small plates with the chocolate top glistening under dining room lights. The cake stayed moist for days because the custard soaked into the sponge layers, preventing dryness that plagued other cakes. Customers debated whether to eat it with forks or just pick up the slice with hands and bite through all the layers at once. The recipe required 3 separate components, prepared perfectly and assembled while still fresh. As Howard Johnson's locations faced staff shortages in the 1970s, fewer cooks possessed the skills needed for proper custard preparation. The company eventually switched to instant pudding mix for the filling, which never achieved the same silky texture. Regular customers noticed immediately and stopped ordering it. The authentic version with real cooked custard vanished completely by 1975, when convenience replaced craftsmanship across the entire menu. Peppermint stick ice cream became the unofficial flavor of Christmas at Howard Johnson's, when families made it tradition to stop after holiday shopping for scoops of the pink and white striped ice cream that tasted like candy canes melted into frozen cream. The flavor appeared on menus year-round, but sales tripled between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day. Real peppermint candy canes got crushed into small pieces and folded into vanilla ice cream base, along with red food coloring, that created the distinctive pink color and candy cane stripe pattern. The crushed candy didn't completely dissolve, leaving crunchy bits throughout that provided texture contrast against smooth cream. Each bite delivered intense peppermint flavor that cleared sinuses and made taste buds tingle. Children requested it even in summer, drawn to the bright pink color and association with Christmas excitement. Adults ordered it after heavy meals because the peppermint settled stomachs and provided palate-cleansing freshness. The candy canes came from a specific supplier who made them using traditional methods with real peppermint oil rather than artificial flavoring. When that supplier closed in 1978, Howard Johnson's switched to cheaper candy canes made with imitation peppermint that tasted chemical and harsh. The color changed from natural pink to bright artificial magenta that looked wrong in the display case. Longtime customers complained that it didn't taste the same anymore. Sales dropped dramatically. By 1982, most locations discontinued the flavor entirely. The authentic version made with real peppermint candy canes never returned. Modern peppermint ice creams use artificial flavoring that can't replicate the pure taste everyone remembers from childhood trips to orange-roofed restaurants. Banana Royal elevated the simple banana split into something more sophisticated by layering 3 different ice cream flavors in a specific order that created a flavor progression from first bite to last. A whole banana split lengthwise formed the foundation. Vanilla ice cream went on one end, covered with crushed pineapple and pineapple syrup. Strawberry ice cream occupied the middle section, topped with fresh sliced strawberries and strawberry sauce. Chocolate ice cream finished the other end, smothered in hot fudge that stayed warm enough to remain liquid. Whipped cream rosettes separated each section. Chopped walnuts scattered across everything added crunch. 3 cherries crowned the creation. The construction required skill because the sauces couldn't mix together or the visual appeal disappeared. Each Banana Royal cost 75 cents in 1970, 20 cents more than regular banana splits, because it used premium toppings and required extra preparation time. The specific layering technique appeared in employee training manuals, with diagrams showing exact placement of each component. When Howard Johnson's eliminated training programs during financial troubles, new employees never learned the proper construction method. The dessert quietly disappeared from menus by 1978 without official announcement. Pistachio ice cream stood out in the display case with its distinctive pale green color that didn't come from food coloring, but rather from real ground pistachios mixed into the cream base. Howard Johnson's version tasted nothing like the artificial pistachio ice cream sold in grocery stores that relied on almond extract and green dye. Real California pistachios got shelled, blanched, and ground into fine paste before incorporating into the ice cream base. The grinding process released natural oils that provided authentic nutty flavor and the subtle green tint. Whole pistachio pieces, stirred into the mixture, added texture and visual proof of real nuts rather than artificial flavoring. The flavor tasted sophisticated and slightly sweet, with earthy undertones that appealed to adults more than children. Each scoop cost 30 cents, 5 cents more than vanilla or chocolate. The pale green color looked elegant rather than artificial. Some locations displayed it prominently in the front of the case to showcase the natural color as proof of quality ingredients. Regular customers could taste the difference immediately if locations tried switching to cheaper imitation pistachio flavoring. As Howard Johnson's faced financial pressure in the late 1970s, corporate mandated switching to artificial pistachio flavoring and green food coloring to cut costs. The new version tasted like marzipan and looked like mint ice cream. Devoted pistachio fans stopped ordering it and complained to management. The authentic version, using real California pistachios, disappeared by 1979. Baked Indian pudding represented Howard Johnson's commitment to authentic New England cuisine, serving a dessert that dated back to colonial times when settlers adapted British hasty pudding recipes using cornmeal instead of wheat flour. The dish mystified customers from other regions who had never encountered cornmeal in dessert form. Yellow cornmeal cooked slowly in milk with molasses, ginger, cinnamon, and a pinch of salt until it thickened into porridge consistency. The mixture transferred to earthenware ramekins and baked for 2 hours at low temperature until the top formed a dark brown crust, while the interior stayed creamy and pudding-like. Each serving arrived at the table, still bubbling hot in its ramekin, with a generous scoop of vanilla ice cream melting into pools across the top. The dessert cost 25 cents and took 3 hours from start to finish because the long baking time couldn't be rushed without ruining the texture. The molasses came from a specific supplier in Vermont who produced dark, robust molasses that provided the characteristic deep flavor. When that supplier went out of business in 1976, Howard Johnson's switched to standard grocery store molasses that tasted thinner and less complex. Purists noticed immediately and complained that it didn't taste authentic anymore. The original recipe using Vermont molasses and the 3-hour baking technique vanished completely. 15 desserts revealed, 15 more waiting. Boston cream pie required 3 perfect components. Peppermint stick tasted like Christmas year-round. Banana royal needed precise layering techniques. Pistachio used real ground nuts instead of artificial flavoring. Indian pudding took 3 hours to bake properly. The next 5 get even more obscure. Coconut layer cake rose impressively tall. The cake layers used real butter and fresh eggs beaten until light and fluffy, creating tender crumb that stayed moist for days without drying out. The frosting combined butter, powdered sugar, vanilla extract, and coconut milk in proportions that created spreadable consistency without becoming too soft or too stiff. Sweetened shredded coconut got toasted lightly in the oven until golden brown, then pressed into the frosting while still tacky so it adhered properly. Each slice stood nearly 4 inches tall on the plate and cost 35 cents in 1970. Waitresses warned customers that coconut flakes would scatter across the table when cutting through the layers. The cake appeared on menus year-round, but sales peaked during Easter, when families celebrated with desserts that looked festive and special. The assembly required steady hands and patience because the coconut needed application before the frosting set, but after it firmed enough to hold the weight. Inexperienced bakers rushed the process and ended up with coconut sliding off in sheets or frosting too soft to support the layers. As Howard Johnson's reduced kitchen staff in the 1970s, fewer locations had bakers skilled enough to construct the cake properly. The company switched to buying pre-made coconut cakes from suppliers, but those versions used imitation coconut flavoring and artificial frosting that tasted chemical. The homemade version disappeared by 1978. Blueberry pie arrived at tables with filling so thick and glossy that it held its shape when sliced, revealing deep purple-blue berries suspended in clear gel that shimmered under dining room lights. Howard Johnson's used wild Maine blueberries instead of cultivated highbush berries, creating intense flavor that tasted like concentrated summer. Wild blueberries measured smaller than cultivated varieties, but packed 3 times the flavor in compact packages. The filling combined fresh berries with sugar, cornstarch, lemon juice, and a pinch of cinnamon, then cooked just until the starch activated and created the glossy gel. Too much cooking turned the filling brown and muddy, so timing mattered critically. The double crust used the same lard-based pastry as apple pie, baked until golden brown with decorative vents that released steam and prevented soggy bottoms. Each slice cost 30 cents and came recommended a la mode, with vanilla ice cream that melted into the warm filling. Summer months saw the highest sales when fresh Maine blueberries arrived at peak ripeness. The wild blueberries came from a network of seasonal pickers in Maine, who harvested them from low-growing shrubs in rocky coastal areas. As development destroyed wild blueberry habitats in the 1970s, supplies became inconsistent and prices increased dramatically. Howard Johnson's switched to cultivated blueberries that looked bigger but tasted watery and bland in comparison. Regular customers complained immediately that the pie didn't taste the same. The filling looked pale lavender instead of deep purple. The intense blueberry flavor that lingered on the tongue disappeared completely. Coffee brandy ice cream catered exclusively to adults who appreciated sophisticated flavors that combined real coffee extract with brandy liqueur in proportions that created adult dessert without becoming so boozy that children couldn't eat it. The flavor ranked among the top 10 sellers despite its narrow target audience. Strong brewed coffee, reduced down to concentrated syrup, got mixed into vanilla ice cream base, along with real brandy imported from France. The alcohol prevented the ice cream from freezing completely solid, creating softer texture than other flavors that scooped easily, even straight from the freezer. The coffee flavor tasted bold and slightly bitter, balanced by cream sweetness and subtle brandy warmth that appeared in the aftertaste. Each scoop cost 30 cents, the highest price on the menu because of the imported brandy. Adults ordered it after dinner as a sophisticated alternative to coffee and dessert served separately. The flavor never appeared in kids' menus, and waitresses actively discouraged children from ordering it, though no actual rule prohibited it since the alcohol cooked off during freezing. The brandy came from Cognac, France, through a specific importer who supplied Howard Johnson's exclusively. When that business relationship ended in 1977, the company switched to domestic brandy that tasted harsher and chemical. The ice cream became more boozy and less refined. Sales dropped immediately as customers complained about the change. Some locations tried adding more coffee to mask the inferior brandy, but that made it taste too bitter. Fudge cake delivered pure chocolate indulgence in 3 dense layers, separated by chocolate buttercream frosting, and covered in smooth chocolate ganache that hardened into a glossy shell when chilled. The cake appeared on menus as the ultimate choice for serious chocolate lovers who found regular chocolate cake too light and insubstantial. The batter used both cocoa powder and melted dark chocolate, creating deeper chocolate flavor than recipes using only one or the other. The texture came out dense and moist rather than fluffy and light, almost brownie-like in consistency. The buttercream frosting contained more chocolate than butter, making it intensely flavored and slightly grainy from the cocoa. The ganache topping combined chocolate and heavy cream in equal proportions, heated until smooth, then poured over the assembled cake, where it dripped down the sides in elegant ribbons. Each slice cost 35 cents and came recommended with a glass of cold milk or hot coffee to balance the richness. The cake looked impressive on dessert carts that waitresses wheeled between tables, tempting customers with whole cakes displayed under glass domes. Children usually found it too intense and preferred lighter chocolate options. The recipe demanded premium cocoa powder and real dark chocolate, rather than cheaper chocolate-flavored products. As ingredient costs rose in the 1970s, corporate pressure mounted to reformulate using cheaper substitutes. Locations started using cocoa powder exclusively and eliminated the expensive melted chocolate. The cake became lighter in color and less intensely flavored. Burgundy cherry ice cream got its distinctive name from the deep burgundy red color created by dark sweet cherries rather than the bright red maraschino cherries used in other cherry ice creams. The flavor tasted sophisticated and complex, appealing to adults who found regular cherry ice cream too artificial and sweet. Real Bing cherries pitted and chopped went into the ice cream base, along with a splash of cherry brandy that enhanced the fruit flavor without making the dessert noticeably alcoholic. The cherries stained the vanilla base, a rich burgundy color that looked elegant in the display case. Large cherry pieces distributed throughout provided bursts of intense fruit flavor, in contrast to the mild vanilla cream. Each scoop cost 25 cents and never achieved the popularity of chocolate chip or butter pecan, but maintained steady sales among customers who appreciated fruit flavors. The ice cream looked almost wine-colored in certain lighting, leading some locations to display it near the back of the case, where children wouldn't request it thinking it was strawberry. The Bing cherries came from Washington State during a short summer harvest season. Howard Johnson's processed and froze enough cherries in July to last the entire year. When cherry crops failed in 1974 due to severe weather, the company switched to maraschino cherries to maintain supply. The flavor transformed completely. The deep burgundy color turned bright artificial red. The sophisticated cherry brandy taste became candy sweet and chemical. Longtime customers rejected it immediately. 20 desserts gone, 10 remain. Each one disappeared when Howard Johnson's orange roofs vanished from American highways. The hot fudge sundae started this journey. Bisque tortoni brought Italian elegance. Now the final 10 reveal the most obscure desserts that only devoted customers remember, from childhood visits to restaurants that no longer exist. Fudge shortcake transformed the traditional strawberry shortcake concept into a chocolate lover's dream by replacing fruit with hot fudge sauce and using chocolate cake instead of the usual biscuit or sponge cake base. This dessert never achieved the fame of its strawberry counterpart, but maintained a devoted following among customers who ordered it repeatedly and refused to try anything else on the menu. The foundation started with a square of moist chocolate cake baked in shallow pans and cut into individual portions. The cake recipe used buttermilk to create tender crumb and cocoa powder for deep chocolate flavor. Each square got split horizontally to create 2 layers that would hold the filling. Hot fudge sauce, the same recipe used for sundaes, went between the layers while still warm, so it soaked slightly into the cake without making it soggy. A generous scoop of vanilla ice cream crowned the top, placed carefully so it wouldn't immediately slide off the chocolate layers. More hot fudge drizzled over the ice cream created dramatic drips down the sides. Real whipped cream rosettes piped around the base added visual appeal and extra richness. A maraschino cherry finished the presentation that looked impressive enough for special occasions. Each serving cost 45 cents in 1970 and required assembly to order because the hot fudge needed to stay warm while the ice cream had to remain frozen. Waitresses warned customers about the 10-minute wait time, but chocolate enthusiasts insisted it was worth it. The combination of warm cake, hot fudge, and cold ice cream created temperature contrasts that made every bite interesting and prevented palate fatigue from too much chocolate. The dessert appeared in Howard Johnson's training manuals with detailed assembly instructions and photographs showing proper presentation. Ice cream sodas represented old-fashioned soda fountain culture that Howard Johnson's kept alive long after most restaurants abandoned the labor-intensive drinks in favor of simple soft drinks from dispensers. Each soda required individual preparation using specific techniques that created the signature foamy head and proper syrup-to-soda ratio that made them special. The process started with flavored syrup, pumped into tall glasses from chrome dispensers. Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, or any of the 28 ice cream flavors could become soda syrup. The syrup went in first, followed by a small amount of carbonated water that got stirred vigorously to create initial foam. A large scoop of matching ice cream dropped into the glass, followed by more carbonated water poured slowly down the side to prevent excessive foaming that would overflow. The chemical reaction between ice cream and carbonated water created thick foam that rose above the glass rim and required careful monitoring to prevent spills. The foam tasted creamy and sweet, considered the best part by enthusiasts who drank it first before it collapsed. Long spoons and straws came with every soda, so customers could eat the ice cream and drink the liquid simultaneously. Each soda cost 40 cents in 1970 and came served with paper napkins wrapped around the base to catch condensation drips. Children requested them as special treats during family road trips. Adults ordered them nostalgically, remembering similar sodas from their own childhoods in the 1920s and 1930s when soda fountains existed in every drugstore. The technique required practice and skill. Too much carbonated water created foam explosions that overflowed onto tables. Too little made flat sodas that tasted like melted ice cream. The syrup-to-soda ratio needed perfect balance, or the drink became too sweet or too bland. Experienced soda jerks, as the fountain operators were called, could make perfect sodas consistently without measuring, judging proportions by sight and sound. As Howard Johnson's locations installed modern soft drink dispensers in the 1970s, the old-fashioned soda fountains got removed to save counter space. The chrome syrup dispensers went to salvage yards or antique collectors. New employees never learned the traditional soda-making techniques because corporate mandated using the automatic dispensers instead. At Howard Johnson's, stood apart from typical lemon meringue pies served at other restaurants because it used a unique filling recipe that combined both lemon juice and lemon zest to create intense citrus flavor that tasted like fresh lemons rather than artificial lemon extract. The pie appeared seasonally during summer months when fresh lemons arrived at peak ripeness and juice content. The filling started with fresh lemon juice squeezed from California lemons, never from concentrate or bottled juice. The zest from those same lemons got grated fine and added to sugar, creating lemon sugar that released essential oils during the mixing process. Egg yolks, cornstarch, butter, and water combined with the lemon sugar to create a custard that cooked on the stovetop until thick enough to coat the back of a wooden spoon without dripping off immediately. The filling poured into pre-baked pie shells and chilled until set firm. Unlike lemon meringue pie that topped the filling with fluffy meringue, Howard Johnson's version used sweetened whipped cream piped in decorative rosettes around the edge and a single large rosette in the center. The whipped cream provided contrast to the tart filling without adding the sweetness that meringue contributed. Thin lemon slices twisted into spirals garnished the top, providing visual appeal and indicating fresh lemon content. Each slice cost 30 cents and came highly recommended to customers who wanted something refreshing after heavy meals. The tartness cleansed palates, and the bright yellow color looked cheerful on plates. Summer sales outpaced winter sales 3-to-1 because customers associated lemon desserts with warm weather, even though the pie appeared on menus year-round. The recipe demanded fresh lemons, which created supply challenges during winter months when California lemon crops faced weather problems or shipping delays. Steamed fruit pudding arrived at tables during autumn and winter months as a seasonal specialty that brought Victorian-era elegance to roadside dining. The batter combined flour, suet, brown sugar, eggs, and spices with chopped dried fruits including raisins, currants, dates, and candied citrus peel. The mixture went into greased pudding molds that got covered tightly with parchment paper and kitchen string to prevent water from entering during the steaming process. The molds sat in large pots filled halfway with simmering water and steamed for 3 hours until the puddings set firm and developed deep caramel color. Each pudding emerged from its mold, looking like a dome with glossy surface studded with visible fruit pieces. Hard sauce made from butter, powdered sugar, vanilla, and a splash of brandy accompanied every serving, melting into warm pudding and creating rich vanilla pools. The combination tasted like Christmas desserts from English manor houses rather than American highway restaurants. The dessert cost 35 cents and appeared on menus only from October through February because customers associated steamed puddings with cold weather and holiday celebrations. The long cooking time required starting preparation in the morning for evening service. Children usually rejected steamed fruit pudding because the appearance looked dark and unappealing compared to colorful ice cream sundaes. Adults appreciated the sophistication and often ordered it specifically because it reminded them of desserts from their childhoods or European travels. The dessert never achieved high sales volumes, but maintained presence on menus. Corporate pressure mounted to discontinue steamed fruit pudding in favor of year-round desserts with higher profit margins. Most locations stopped making it by 1976. The suet supplier went out of business around the same time, making the traditional recipe impossible even for locations that wanted to continue serving it. Modern versions use vegetable shortening instead of suet, but the flavor and texture never match the original. The authentic English-style steamed pudding with real suet and 3-hour steaming time vanished completely. The specific mold sizes and steaming techniques died with the employees who knew how to prepare it properly. Special pie rotated seasonally based on whatever fruits reached peak ripeness, creating anticipation among regular customers who visited Howard Johnson's specifically to see what special variety appeared that month. The pies never got listed permanently on menus because the flavors changed constantly based on agricultural seasons and regional availability across the country. Spring brought rhubarb pies with strawberry additions that balanced the rhubarb's tartness. Early summer featured cherry pies, when Michigan cherries arrived at their brief peak season. Midsummer offered peach pies using Georgia peaches so ripe they required gentle handling to prevent bruising. Late summer brought blackberry pies when wild berries reached markets. Autumn featured pumpkin and sweet potato variations. Winter showcased mincemeat pies during holidays when customers expected traditional flavors. Each special pie used the same flaky lard crust as other Howard Johnson's pies, but featured unique fillings that changed monthly or even weekly depending on fruit availability. The pies cost 30 cents per slice, the same price as apple or blueberry, despite containing seasonal fruits that sometimes cost significantly more. Howard Johnson's absorbed the extra costs to maintain consistent pricing and encourage customers to try new flavors. The seasonal rotation required sophisticated supply chain management and relationships with fruit growers across multiple states. Corporate coordinated deliveries so that ripe peaches arrived simultaneously at hundreds of locations spanning coast to coast. The system worked smoothly until the 1970s, when fuel shortages and inflation disrupted agricultural shipping and made coordination increasingly difficult. Locations started running out of special pie ingredients mid-week or receiving fruit that arrived overripe and unusable. Corporate struggled to maintain the seasonal rotation with consistent quality. By 1977, most locations discontinued special pie entirely and just rotated between apple, blueberry, and lemon year-round. The concept of seasonal pies using whatever fruit reached peak ripeness disappeared with the logistics network that supported it. Modern restaurants rarely offer truly seasonal desserts because customers expect menu consistency and supply chain limitations make it impractical. The authentic Howard Johnson's Special Pie program that celebrated agricultural seasons and regional fruits never returned. The anticipation and excitement of discovering new flavors each visit became lost nostalgia from an era when restaurants celebrated freshness over consistency. 5 desserts remain in this vanished collection. Fudge shortcake required perfect timing and technique. Ice cream sodas needed equipment that no longer exists. Lemon pie demanded fresh citrus year-round. Steamed fruit pudding took 3 hours to prepare. Special pie celebrated seasons we've forgotten. The final 5 complete this lost legacy. New England steamed pudding differed from its fruit-filled cousin by featuring rum sauce instead of hard sauce and including molasses in the batter that created darker color and more robust flavor profile. This variation appeared on menus as the adult version of steamed pudding. The pudding batter used similar base ingredients but substituted dark molasses for some of the sugar, creating deep brown color and slight bitterness that balanced the sweetness. Raisins and chopped walnuts went into the mixture instead of the mixed dried fruits used in regular steamed pudding. The batter steamed for 3 hours in covered molds just like the original version, emerging dense and moist, with a texture somewhere between cake and bread pudding. The rum sauce elevated it beyond ordinary dessert into something sophisticated enough for fine dining establishments. Real dark rum, heated with butter, brown sugar, and heavy cream, created a sauce that tasted rich and complex, with pronounced rum flavor that didn't cook off during heating. The warm sauce poured generously over each serving soaked into the pudding and created boozy sweetness that adults appreciated but children usually rejected. Regular customers complained immediately about the change in flavor. Some locations tried reducing the rum quantity to mask the inferior quality, but that made the sauce taste like plain caramel without the characteristic rum complexity. Sales declined sharply. Corporate discontinued the dessert in 1978 rather than find a new Jamaican rum supplier or reformulate the sauce successfully. The specific steaming technique and rum sauce proportions disappeared when the last trained cooks retired. Modern attempts to recreate New England steamed pudding fail because the precise molasses-to-sugar ratio and rum sauce balance were never written down formally. Danish pastry brought European bakery sophistication to American highway dining, when most restaurants served only pies and cakes for dessert. The dough required 3 days of preparation from start to finish. Day 1 involved mixing flour, yeast, milk, eggs, and a small amount of butter into dough that rested overnight in refrigerators. Day 2 featured the lamination process, where cold butter got folded into the dough repeatedly, creating alternating layers of butter and dough that numbered in the hundreds after multiple folding sequences. Day 3 brought shaping and baking after the dough rested again to prevent shrinkage during the final rise. Howard Johnson's offered 3 varieties that rotated on dessert menus: a simple glaze made from powdered sugar and milk drizzled over the tops added sweetness and shine, but also showed up on dessert menus when customers wanted something sweet, but less heavy than cake or pie. They came served warm from ovens that kept them at perfect temperature throughout the day. Coffee paired naturally with Danish pastries, creating a combination that appealed to customers who wanted light desserts after big meals. The central commissary that produced all the Danish pastries employed master bakers trained in European techniques who understood lamination and fermentation timing. The facility operated like a factory, producing thousands of pastries daily that got frozen and shipped to individual restaurants where they simply needed final baking. When Howard Johnson's faced financial troubles in the late 1970s, Corporate closed the central commissary to cut costs and mandated that individual locations either make Danish pastries themselves or buy them from local suppliers. Few locations had bakers skilled enough for proper lamination. Local suppliers produced inferior pastries that lacked the signature hundreds of layers and tasted more like sweet rolls than authentic Danish. The quality declined dramatically. Customers noticed that the pastries became doughy and heavy instead of light and flaky. Sales collapsed. By 1980, most locations discontinued Danish pastries entirely rather than serve substandard versions. The specific lamination technique and 3-day production schedule disappeared with the commissary that perfected it. Modern Danish pastries use shortcuts that eliminate the lengthy process, creating pastries that look similar but never achieve the delicate layering that made Howard Johnson's versions special. Jell-O cubes with whipped cream represented the simplest dessert on Howard Johnson's entire menu. It achieved surprising popularity because it offered something light and refreshing after heavy meals that left customers too full for rich cakes or ice cream. The dessert appeared primarily on children's menus, but adults ordered it frequently when they wanted something sweet without feeling overstuffed. The preparation required making flavored gelatin according to package directions, then pouring it into shallow pans where it set into firm sheets about 1 inch thick. Once fully set, the gelatin got cut into perfect 1-inch cubes using sharp knives dipped in hot water to prevent sticking. The cubes went into small glass dessert bowls, creating colorful mounds that looked cheerful and appealing on tables. Real whipped cream, not the canned spray variety, got dolloped generously over the gelatin cubes. Cream was sweetened lightly with powdered sugar and vanilla, whipped to soft peaks that held shape without becoming stiff or grainy. A single maraschino cherry crowned each serving, providing a pop of contrasting color against the pastel gelatin and white cream. The dessert cost only 15 cents in 1970, making it the cheapest item on the dessert menu and popular with families on tight budgets who wanted to give children treats without spending excessively. The portions looked substantial because the gelatin cubes took up considerable space in the bowls, despite weighing very little. Children loved the bright colors and wobbly texture that jiggled when they poked it with spoons. Howard Johnson's offered rotating flavors including strawberry, lime, orange, lemon, and grape. Some locations displayed all 5 flavors simultaneously, allowing customers to request specific colors or combinations. The variety created visual appeal in dessert display cases, where colorful gelatin cubes attracted attention from passing diners who hadn't initially planned on ordering dessert. Toasted golden pound cake transformed simple pound cake into something special through a unique serving method that toasted thick slices on a griddle until golden brown and slightly crispy on the outside while staying moist and tender inside. The toasting technique elevated ordinary cake into a warm dessert that paired perfectly with ice cream and created textures impossible to achieve with regular untoasted cake. The pound cake itself followed traditional ratios of 1 pound each of butter, sugar, eggs, and flour, creating dense, rich cake that held together when sliced thick without crumbling or falling apart. The batter contained vanilla extract and a pinch of salt, but no other flavorings, allowing the pure butter flavor to dominate. The cakes baked in loaf pans until deep golden brown with slightly domed tops, and cooled completely before slicing. Thick slices, approximately 1 inch wide, got placed on a hot buttered griddle, where they toasted for 2 minutes per side until crispy golden brown surfaces formed. The heat caramelized sugars in the cake, creating subtle crunch that contrasted with the soft interior. Each toasted slice went onto a plate while still warm, topped with a generous scoop of vanilla ice cream that began melting immediately upon contact with the warm cake. The combination created temperature and texture contrasts that made every bite interesting. The crispy toasted exterior provided crunch. The tender cake interior offered richness. The melting ice cream added cold creaminess that soaked into the warm cake. The dessert cost 20 cents and appealed to customers who wanted something simple, satisfying, without elaborate presentation or multiple components. The griddle toasting required careful attention because pound cake burned easily if the heat got too high, or if slices sat unattended for too long. Experienced cooks knew exactly when to flip the slices by watching for golden edges and smelling the caramelizing sugars. New employees often burned slices or served them under-toasted without the proper crispy texture. Howard Johnson's eliminated griddles from most kitchens during the 1970s, when equipment simplification became necessary for reducing training time and maintenance costs. Chocolate chip ice cream became Howard Johnson's best-selling flavor throughout the company's entire 60-year history, outselling vanilla 2-to-1 and chocolate 3-to-1 in every region across America. The flavor achieved legendary status because of the chocolate chips themselves, which came from a proprietary recipe that created chips with the perfect size, texture, and flavor that no competitor ever successfully duplicated. Chocolate chips weren't regular chocolate chips purchased from suppliers. Howard Johnson's produced them in-house using a specific chocolate blend that combined dark chocolate, cocoa butter, and a small amount of coconut oil. The mixture got tempered properly to create stable chocolate that remained solid even in ice cream, but melted smoothly on the tongue without waxy coating that plagued cheaper chocolate chips. The chips got formed by pouring streams of melted chocolate onto cold marble slabs, where they hardened into irregular shapes ranging from tiny specks to large chunks. The size variety meant every spoonful contained different amounts and sizes of chocolate, making each bite unique. Some chips were so small they integrated into the cream base. Others grew large enough to require biting through, creating satisfying crunch that contrasted with smooth ice cream. The vanilla ice cream base featured double the butterfat of standard ice cream, creating richness that complemented the dark chocolate without overwhelming it. The ratio of chips to cream got calibrated precisely so that every scoop contained abundant chocolate without becoming too much. Customers could always taste vanilla cream along with chocolate in perfect balance. Each scoop cost 25 cents and outsold all other flavors combined during peak summer months. Children requested it more than any other flavor. Adults ordered it nostalgically, remembering it from their own childhoods. The flavor represented Howard Johnson's in popular culture and appeared in movies, television shows, and books as the definitive road trip ice cream. When corporate pressure mounted to reduce costs in the 1970s, the proprietary chocolate chip production got eliminated in favor of purchasing standard chocolate chips from commercial suppliers. The new chips tasted different immediately. They were too uniform in size, too sweet, and left waxy coating on the tongue. The irregular shapes and perfect texture disappeared. Devoted customers complained loudly. Sales declined for the first time in decades. Corporate tried switching suppliers multiple times, but never found chips that matched the original. By 1980, chocolate chip ice cream still appeared on menus, but bore no resemblance to the legendary version that built Howard Johnson's reputation. These 30 Howard Johnson's desserts vanished between 1985 and 2024 as the empire that once operated over 1,000 locations crumbled to a single restaurant. The hot fudge sundae that defined American road trips, the bisque tortoni that required Italian craftsmanship, and the 28 ice cream flavors that drew lines around the block all disappeared when Howard Johnson's failed to modernize. By the 1990s, families stopped seeking out orange roofs for special occasion desserts, choosing convenience over tradition. The recipes died with retiring employees who never wrote them down, and corporate ownership changes erased institutional memory. Today, vintage menu collectors pay hundreds of dollars for 1960s dessert lists, trying to recreate what's lost. Strawberry shortcake, that once sold 50,000 servings daily across America, now exists only in fading photographs and childhood memories. These weren't just desserts. They were the sweet rewards of mid-century American travel, treats that made every family vacation complete. When the last Howard Johnson's closes, these 30 forgotten desserts will become permanent ghosts of a vanished era when every exit ramp promised identical excellence under an orange roof.